not really happy.
Nigel couldn't make it.
Yeah.
I rang up Mendenhall, he said he could make it.
Don't dig this hole. Phil, credit to the guy, he always manages to do well what he has to. He is a shocking personality. You guys got a trophy? No.
It was pre-bit.
No, my life from Rashad Mendenhall.
Right, you go, cancel. I'm a tag, Jack! I'm a fucking tag!
Hello and welcome to another episode of the LOC Report. We are back with a Saturday edition of the LOC Report. No less, the sun is shining, which we probably can't say for much longer, and the LOC season is in full swing, and I'm joined once again, thankfully, by co-host Chris Leach. How's it going, Chris?
This is good to be back. I have to say, I've missed the LOC Report.
It's lower stakes than
Much more irreverent on here. So
yeah,
this is going to feel like that episode last season where I just teed off. So I think the uncorking is about to happen. So here we go.
Buckle in, listeners, buckle in. And if you do somehow stumble upon this show and you are not part of the LOC, go check out the LOC Fantasy Show because you'll probably enjoy that one more. But you're welcome to watch this one too. Watch both.
This one is still good. This is nuts and bolts of everything. You know, this is what we have grown up doing for the last 16 years.
Yep.
This is a random set of rules, a random set of conventions. So
absolutely. We'll just dive straight into it. We're going to try and keep this as a punchy show, Chris, because we have various podcasts which we do nowadays. So we don't want to podcast ourselves to death. So we'll get straight into it with last week's recaps, and for that we need the recap jingle, of course. So we'll do the condensed version of the recap. So we'll just have a whistle-stop tour of the games. We'll start off with what I chose as the marquee matchup last week, Chris, which was Great Scott against Tom's Tyrants, because at the time both of these teams were 2-0. I think both of them. Well, only one can become 2-0. Sorry, 1-1. Sorry, 1-0. Only one of them could obviously become 2-0, as we know. I did pick Tom's Tyrants in this game, and that's my pick gone wrong here, because Jeff did win this one, albeit not in mightily impressive fashion, 87-65, which takes the history of this matchup all time to 2-0 in favour of Jeff, because obviously Jeff only joined last year. We'll just do a quick one here. I mean, it was basically about Kyler Murray was the difference in this game, if we're being completely honest, Chris. I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And Jeff won at a cost.
He did.
Because, it might be a 20-point victory all by QB, but losing Cooper Kupp and Pacheco is not a good sign for next week. Very difficult to replace, especially with that bench.
Well, he's got Jaden Reed, Jameson Williams, and Xavier Worthy. I think they're not like for like options. I'm not making that claim, but in terms of compared to some teams in the league, if they were to lose an equivalent to players, they would be in a much worse state than Jeff would be.
Yeah, I mean, I think Jaden Reed's got zero value, while Malik Willis is the QB. Yes,
well, yeah,
when Jordan's back, I agree. So there's room for to be a bit more positive, but yes, Tom's lack of a viable tight end in Travis Kelce and Jaden Daniels' ability to just kind of run but not score any TDs.
7 field goals against the Giants. What the hell is that about?
Yeah, that's bizarre. But aside from that, there's still some shoots of positivity in there. Obviously, even in a beatdown loss, Kyren Williams goes for double-digit points.
Yep.
It's not too bad. Amon Ra's going from
the touchdown absolutely saved him. We need to point that out.
For sure,
to your point still, yeah.
As they do.
Yeah.
And kicker and D-score wasn't terrible. But aside from that, not a lot to hang your hat on there.
Nope. So Tom gets the 1 in the column, and Jeff keeps the 0. We had Pat against Forge Fires, which was, to be honest, Chris, probably one of the games, if not the game of the week. Pat took it 123 to 104, and again, this was a case of 2 1-0 teams facing off, so this could have been the other candidate. But yeah, Pat keeps the 0 in the column with an impressive score. I think that was the high on the week. Indeed, it was. I mean, you had the big story in this one was you obviously had a 42 points courtesy of Alvin Kamara, and you still lost this one. I did pick Pat, so I got this one right.
Good.
I mean, I would say both of you, well, you were let down by your quarterback, but so was Pat in a way, with obviously Tua having a bad game and then getting concussed. Obviously, we know in this one, Pat sprung out to the 62-point lead with 4 players already, but he still had to bring it home because obviously Kamara largely erased Cook and Achan. And you definitely gave a good go of it, to be fair to you. But yeah, Pat just about lasted you.
It was a surprising one. Obviously, outside of Kamara, there wasn't, again, a lot to write about. Some decent, looking at Zay Flowers, Gibbs, Brock Bowers scores, but obviously Kamara's was absolutely unbelievable. Ridley on the bench was a weird one, especially in that.
Yeah, you're not playing him against Source, though. That's a wise bench. No.
Not taking away from Pat. Pat had a team performance there.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't matter if Tua scores 7.5 when he's got 2 QB scores. James Conner's gone for a low QB score, and then 2 15-pointers in there, one being the kicker. So it's and 13 from the Chiefs D. So look, it's nearly what we would call a perfect game here. You know,
pretty much.
Two players away from a perfect game of a
double
win
digits.
and scoring double digits. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And we always reference the holy trifecta on this show. Pat may have that with Achan, Cook, and Connor.
Almost certainly. That's you don't need a QB when you've got guys look like that who are doing all right. But again, that's the frightening thing about this team is that you put a QB in for 20 points, and this is a 150-point team.
Yes. Look out for Pakistan, absolutely.
Scary.
And your record against Pat is now 3-9, Chris. So Pat,
he's definitely a bogey team.
Yeah,
for sure.
Next game we had the Dream Team take on Magnet Kitchens, as they were called at the time. Yes, he is going to rotate the team name each week. Sorry. Viv came into this one with the win, whereas Coach Garden Betters was looking for his first win, and he knocks off the current champ. His first loss since last season for Viv. 103-84. History of this matchup all time. Now Viv is 7-3. So it picks up another L, but still comfortably ahead. I suppose nothing really greatly too interesting in this one on either side of the ball. I suppose you may say that Viv's even got slightly bailed out by quite a good kicker score. But beyond that, I don't think there's
very good kicker score.
Very good kicker score. Yeah, I don't think there's too much of interest to really call out in this game. It was fairly bog standard outside of that. Is that fair, Chris?
I would say so. I think certainly for the Dream Team, as you say, it stat padding with the 20 points from Kemi Fairbairn, but for Ollie, again, we talk about two players away from a perfect game, some of the streaky ones did make good of what they had. Lots of TDs in there. Malik Neighbours obviously went for 18.5, give or take. So that was nice to see. Won't happen every week though.
It's good. He got his one of 2 good games from Neighbours this year, because the other one's only going to come when he plays the Commanders again.
But lots of streaky receivers in there. It's obviously quite with Ford and Pollard. That isn't going to be a consistent team. That's going to be very, very up and down all year.
Yeah.
Especially with that on the bench as well.
Definitely, but he gets the win here. Then we had probably our worst game of the slate last week, bucking the trend against Ben Necessities. Ben Necessities obviously lost the heartbreaker in week 1, and then they scored far fewer points in this one and lost to bucking the trend, who picks up their first win, 79-72. The history of this matchup all time now is 3-5 in favour of Mike, and again, fairly low scoring game. I think this just about avoids the scumbag music jingle Mike could be pleased to hear, because my dad got over 70, so I believe that is the criteria. We can play it. You know what? Screw it.
Anyway.
Screw it. Yeah, Chris wants the music. Here we go. We're in the background. We can talk over it. This is the benefit of the LOC Fantasy Show. I've actually edited the jingles, so I can just play them off the computer now. We can talk over them. It's fine. I mean, not really too much to speak about for either of the teams. I think I suppose with Ben Necessities, I mean, Mixon got injured, but I don't think that really changed the game necessarily, did it, Chris?
No, not at all. I think there's more problem. Your dad's team is much more problematic than that. I think the Josh Allen 11 points probably crushed that a bit more. He seems to have got some smash mouth running backs in Henry and Montgomery, obviously very touchdown dependent. Brian Robinson still is not being played, but he will be now.
Almost certainly. Yep, almost certainly.
But the receiving core is not good on this team.
No.
I mean, it's
the real interesting thing is this one is Mahomes and Allen both going for less than 17 points. I mean,
yeah, right.
The Allen game with Buffalo, I mean, they were just beating Miami to a canter. That game was literally done in 3 quarters, and they did not really need Josh Allen for really any of the 3 quarters that they were playing. And then Mahomes just had sort of what has become a more typical Mahomes game, I suppose.
Yeah, I actually think these two teams are very similar in the way that they're composed. They've got running backs galore, and Jacobs and Robinson, obviously Mike's got him. JSN's going to have good games, but infrequently. And Cooper and Diggs, I'm not convinced about at all. Neither am I convinced about Pittman and Laporta on for necessities as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of inconsistency perhaps ahead, but both of them will have to rely a lot on their QB to be competing in many games this year.
Yeah, for sure. I picked these last 3 games right, by the way. I forgot to mention that. And I also picked this one right, so I'm 4-1 so far on the week. Oakland Bears picks up their first win. Well done, Freddie. 107, good score to boot. To 88 over Ixan. Ixan, is Ben the Baltimore Ravens of the LOC starting 0-2, like a lauded former champion, starting 0-2. And obviously this is the first time they've played each other, so Freddie picks up the 1-0 in the column in the head-to-head, so well done you, Freddie. I mean, just a very good score. Marvin Harrison Jr. turned up. That was obviously a large portion of the victory this week for Freddie. The rest of the team scored fairly well as well. On Ben's side, I don't think there's necessarily anything you would point to in particular. 88's not a bad score, I don't think. In all things considered, it's average, obviously, but just outscored by the other team, really.
I agree. I think that Ben's team, he can be very pleased with some of the skill positions that he got. Obviously, Metcalf, Godwin, and Barkley did well in this. Mm-hmm. It's finding a couple of guys off the waivers later on in the season, I think, because Pickens and White you're not going to rely on, and Prescott's woefully inconsistent. But he does have Baker on his bench, and I think Baker as a fantasy option is looking pretty good. Mm-hmm. See Puka and Marquise Brown going down. Get rid of Marquise Brown now, Ben, because he's not going to come back.
No, I think he has already dropped him since the set lineups last week.
But yeah, for Freddie, there's a lot of upside on his team. You think of Richardson, who will have better days and score even a 100-point win. So that's what I would point out. But yeah, Marvin Harrison there has all the makings of somebody who can be a proper game changer for him.
Definitely.
And obviously this was padded out a little bit by the Chargers playing Carolina as well.
Oh yeah. Those $15 were worth it though. He got more than a point per buck he spent, so I'd say it helped to get him the win. So. Yeah,
he's got a lot of Shaheed on the bench, and say both of them will prove interesting as well. I think, of course, particularly Shaheed obviously is through 2 weeks.
Yes, definitely. For Ben, it's a bit of a worry because obviously, I suppose Ben's teams typically rely on the strong draft. He's not one to typically, I would say, add too much through the waiver wire through the season. Normally, he does add a player or two normally that does make an impact. But like you say, the bench at the moment is pretty bereft. Maybe Alec Pierce could be a thing, but it's been somewhat opportunistic, as we say, for him so far. And like you say, he really needs 2 starters, let alone padding out the bench. So yeah, Ben's got some old work to do, either on the old trades or the waiver wire.
Carson Steele could be the steal of his draft, and I think that if he ends up being the surefire number 1 in there, then that will somewhat go to solving his problem.
Yeah, for sure. And then our last game of the week, which featured Gridiron Gang against DJ S'mores. I came into this with the win on the board. Ross did not. And I locked up Ross in this one, and I did get the lock, just. It was another absolute nail-biter. 2 nail-biters through the first 2 weeks. 106.12 to 105.9. I tried to come back in the Sunday night football game with CJ Stroud and Nico Collins, and came up perilously short. You can always look to various butterfly effects of things that happened or didn't happen in games like this, but obviously it's the sum of its parts. Ross does get the win, and a nice win at that. Good scores across the board from Ross. He capitalised on obviously Singletary having a soft matchup, Stevenson being in a competitive game for the Patriots, Steelers D obviously having a nice day as well. And on my side, really, it's I suppose what could have been with Tyreek Hill only getting 3.6 on the Thursday night game, and then the Colts bizarrely absolutely crapping the bed against Malik Willis and only getting 4 points. I think those are the highlights here, really.
That's not a great deal, quite, and I think that's what you're going to hang your hat on. I think as a obviously the 17 points from Brandon Aubrey as well, despite the fact that he got battered. I mean, every cloud has its silver lining, but yeah, look, you'd expect more from Tyreek Hill in this game.
You really do. I mean, the Bills have been really good on D so far. They made it a point of erasing him and Waddle, and that's exactly a wise game plan because none of my Miami supporting cast did anything to detract from that game plan. So
there's so much more for you to be excited about, though. I suppose Dobbins is the draft steal so far, I think.
Yep.
So Nico Collins looks like an absolute monster. Mason was a good pickup, just despite the injury to CMC. So I think that's for now, it's well set. When CMC comes back, you've got a bit of a hole.
Yep.
But until then, exploit it for what you've got.
Absolutely.
For Ross, as you quite rightly said, it's soft matchups all over the board. But fair play, Justin Jefferson looked like he's still in a competent offense, which is not something to be expected.
Well, I suppose of his 19.3 points there, he got, what would it have been, 15.7 of them on one catch, which was a very good catch, albeit, but...
So you got to be some sort of player, but yeah, it's got Brian Chubb behind the bench as well. There's lots of upside. Again, Chubb's there too. Mustn't forget his reserve spot for what that's worth.
Yeah.
It looks like they will definitely need him as the season goes on. So look, I think that for now, this was a good season. Enlightening. I don't know what's the word. Ross has lit the touch paper on his season with this week. So that's sometimes what you need to get going.
Yeah, absolutely. So that puts me at 5-1 on the week with the Pick'em, and I'm 2-0 so far with the locks as well, and 10-2 on the season with the Pick'em. So we're fairly good start, and you had a good start in week 1 at 5-1 with the Pick'em too. We'll just do the around the league section, which is this fun little stat bit here. So teams that started the top 5 scoring quarterback went perfect 2-0 on the week. That makes sense. First round draft picks only averaged 10.47 points this week. Second round is put up an average of 12.05. While players in the third round were 12.52, which is somewhat interesting, but I suppose there were some quarterbacks in the third round too. Teams have won 53.8% of the time this season when they throw no interceptions in a week. Interesting. Great Scott was favoured by the widest margin in the league this week at 5.2 and delivered a 21.8 point victory. Projected winners went 4-2 overall this week, and Pat Stan scored 123.4, the highest score in the week. That is the around the league section. We will go now on to the league news. Injuries galore is the theme of the news this week. Deebo Samuel is going to miss a few weeks with a calf strain for Gridiron Gang. We already touched on it. Cooper Kupp has a high ankle sprain for Great Scott. He's not going on IR, but that does not necessarily mean he will be back within said 4 weeks, as they have had so many injuries already and so many players on IR. They are hesitant to put any more on there because there are only so many players they can activate off of IR in a season. So that's, interesting. Isaiah Pacheco broke his fibula, I think it was, so he's out for the foreseeable future for Great Scott as well. He is on IR though, so at least he can pop him on that. Tua got the concussion for Pat Stan, which obviously is going to have a butterfly effect on the Miami skill positions across the league as well. He's now on IR for both the Dolphins and Pat Stan. AJ Brown had that hamstring injury for the Dream Team. He missed last week. He's already been ruled out for this week too. And Joe Mixon has an ankle injury for Ben Estes. He's not going to play. He's doubtful this week, but probably not going to play. There are obviously some more minor injuries, but those are sort of the big ones, Chris. So lots of injuries going around.
Unbelievable amount of injuries, and say not just the bit part players, but key ones too. So yeah, it's this is the game though, isn't it? This is the game, isn't it?
It is.
It's how you recover from that. Is your bench strong enough? Did you think about the possibility of that? Are there play people on the waiver wire that you've overlooked? If they are, then go for them. If they're not, then well, you're going to have to just hope and pray and cross your fingers and see what happens. Or indeed, the other option is you can trade.
You can. That brings me on nicely, actually. Thank you, Chris. Nice segue, because I was going to go into the transactions. We have no notable waiver ads, really. There are some, ones that could pan out, but I think nothing at this stage that really bears speaking about too much. I will check that just while we're discussing this next thing. But we have had our first trade of the season, which is, Bare Necessity sends $15 to Gridiron Gang for Cam Akers, and in a corresponding move, obviously to create roster space for said transaction, Bare Necessities drops Tyler Lockett. What do you make of that one, Chris?
This is Cam Akers, who's coming in for the Texans because they've got literally no one else.
With Damian Pierce injured as well. Yep.
This is an opportunist move, I believe.
Oh yeah, I snagged him because I was monitoring the practice reports. To be honest, I was actually considering playing him myself, but I snagged him by dropping a defense, and I really didn't want to drop anyone else for him. So I was like, well, I'll try and do a trade, not necessarily for Cam Akers, but just try and do a trade to get someone off my team so then I could add a D. I went to the Joe Mixon owner and my dad and said, do you want your handcuff? And he said yes, so that's how it goes.
$15 later, here you are.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Which helps offset the money I spent on Isaiah Likely, which is always nice. And then just thank you gave me the time to look through there. There is one sort of spendy transaction that we had this week, which I will call out. It's Samaje Perine, $15 by Pakistan. I actually quite like this because we don't really know how this Chiefs backfield is going to shake out. We said in the LOC Fantasy Show yesterday that Perine has obviously stepped in as a handcuff before for Joe Mixon, and he could well end up in the quote-unquote McKinnon role for the Chiefs, so I think that's a pretty good, wise addition there, Chris.
Yes, I think so. I think you've got to hedge your bets in certain things like this. I would argue why no one else who really does need players, because Pat doesn't need them, would go for that. You think you go for a bit higher, but, fair play. Pat's doing what he's got to do.
It is odd that, because like I said in week one, I went for Isaiah Likely and spent 26. Nobody else even tried to claim him. So we've had it's really difficult in our league because some weeks it's really active and then it's really inactive, and it's just a hard one to call. I sort of have added just a point to the AGM next year to maybe discuss, because this waiver system is very good, but where you have not only who you're going to try and add, but the element of you need to decide how much you're going to bid, and then you have to order it and all that jazz. It is obviously more complex and time consuming than if we just had reverse order of standing. So I have added on as a point, not to say let's go back, but just to discuss, if we did go back, would this make people be more active with the waivers? Because obviously at the moment it can be a bit more time consuming. It might not. We might not want to do it because the system we have is good. It's just, like you say, the shallow bench format obviously has something to do with it as well, because part of it is you don't want to, whether the benches are shallower, you've got better players, and you don't necessarily want to drop people for, more speculative things if the person you have has value. But anyway. We'll go into the standing stats and milestones now. No interesting numbers, but something I did spot that was interesting as I was going along. The top 6 winningest coaches of all time all lost this week, so that was amusing. On the trade block, just players for my team, if you would like to acquire one or multiple of Rico Dowdle, Christian Kirk, Isaiah Likely, or DJ Moore, please let me know. Check out the power rankings when they land. They should hopefully drop at some point. Did we get power rankings last week? I don't think we did we?
I don't think we did.
No, come on, Tom. Pull your finger out. Hopefully we get them this week. Nothing else to discuss, so we will go on to Debate Corner. We need John to usher us into Debate Corner, of course. John, where are you, John? Where is he? Oh, there he is.
No one knows.
He's here, it's fine. Thank you, John. Yeah, he's busy just ordering the free clothes that he's been offered by H&M for being a member of Parliament now. he is going to declare it, though, so it's fine.
I'm going.
Yeah.
Let's say, unlike the Prime Minister.
Debate Corner this week. We have 4 teams that have an O in the column, which is nice and evenly split, actually, by 2 2-0 teams and 2 0-2 teams. My question for you this week, Chris, who will be the last team to lose a 0 in their respective column? The teams that are 2-0-2, 2-2-0 teams are Pakistan and Great Scott, and the 2 0-2 teams are Bare Necessities and Ixan. Who will be the last to lose their 0?
Oh, wow. So, do you know what? I absolutely love Pat's team. I think that he won't lose his 0 for a while. So I'm not going to go with him. Are Ben necessity to keep getting battered? Well, the answer is we'll have a look in the build-ups in a minute. But I say I don't like three of his 6 skill positions.
Mm-hmm.
So the answer is probably there, especially if Alan doesn't have a good game. Ben's got enough quality in that team to be able to win week on week. And Great Scott, well, I say
bit injury, Beleaguered, it's kind of taken some of the upside away, I'd say. So the first loss is, and just looking at the stats here, he is the least scored against team at the moment with just under 150. The next closest is 169, just for reference. So he's been very beneficial in terms of the opposition so far.
Absolutely, no, it has worked in his favour. Though, having said that, I think that will probably continue within the in the division as well. So the answer is, because I think that Ross's team's got a bit more in it as well, but not this week. I think the last team, and I think they're going to lose this week, and we'll come to this in a minute, is going to be Bare Necessities, I'm afraid.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, I can see that logic. Bare Necessities plays. Who do they play this week? Oakland Bears this week, just for reference. I'm actually going to pick Pat, because Pat is the highest scoring team at the moment. He's been relatively scored against as well. Like you said, I think with, he's got an extremely good team. He's got those 3 very good running backs. So it's hard to obviously stay undefeated more than being defeated, so to speak. But I think there's more. Ben Necessities hasn't scored too badly, and they've been fairly scored against as well. Ben is the highest conceded points against team at the moment, so like you say, that's gonna, even though his points are on the lower side, but yeah, in theory that's gonna line up at some point. And Great Scott, yeah, with the injuries he's suffered and obviously the low points against thus far, that's gonna change as well. So yeah, my pick is Pat, but yes, Ben Necessities is a good pick. We'll just dovetail back and do the standings and stats and things as well. So if we start off with the Southampton division, we have 4 1-1 teams, because after week 1, Forge Flyers, Gridiron Gang, and Tom's Tyrants, I think, all were 1-0, and Magnet Kitchens was the only team without a win, and that completely flipped in week 2. All of Forge Flyers, Gridiron Gang, Tom's Tyrants lost, and Ollie Garden Meadows won. So everyone is 1-1, and obviously the order is just based on points at the moment. There is a lot of disparity though between the top and the bottom. Chris, you were the top 217. Tom was the bottom with 155. My goodness. Portsmouth division, Pat Stone's 2-0, one of the 2-0 teams, as I said. Then we have a couple of 1-1 teams in the Dream Team and Bucking the Trend. And then Ixan at the bottom at 0-2. Winchester division, again, one of the 2-0 teams, Great Scott. 2 1-1 teams in DJ S'mores. Or what was he called last week? Jerry Lee's Rice and Beans, yeah, and Oakland Bears as well. And then Ben Necessities at the bottom there, 0-2. If we look at the overall, Pat Stan is top of the pile with the highest points forward, and then Jeff's obviously right behind with the next best record. Then we obviously have 8 1-1 teams at the moment. If we look in terms of points forward, as I said, Pat is the highest scoring, followed by you, Chris, then myself and Great Scott. We are all over 200 points. And then if we look to the bottom hand side, Mike is the lowest scorer so far without even scoring 150 yet. Then Tom's at 155, Ben at 170, they're in 10th. If we look in the terms of points against, Ixan highest with 220, he's 0-2. Viv is 217, conceded 1-1. You, Chris, you've got the second highest score. You're also the third highest points against, and you are 1-1 with 205. If we turn then to the bottom, Great Scott, unsurprisingly one of the 2-0 teams. Relatively good points forward there, fourth highest scorer, but lowest points conceded with 149. Tom's Tyrants there, fairly low scored, but fairly low conceded as well with 169. Mike there at 172 as well. He's 1-1. Pat also 2-0, one of the 2-0 teams, considered 174, but to be honest, that's more towards the median. If we look at the breakdown, not too interesting because it's quite early. We've only had a couple of weeks, but Pat is leading the breakdown. He is a combined 18-4 across the start of the season. You are 16-6, second in this metric, Chris. I am 14-8 in third, as is Viv, tied, and then we get towards the middle ground where it's more around 500. We look to the bottom, Bucking the Trend 3-19 on the year so far. Tom's Tyrants 5-17. Both those teams 1-1 though, so they were obviously somewhat not fortunate. More than Ben, who was obviously 0-2 with 8-8 and 14 record, and my dad, who was at 500 in this, but still 0-2 as well. That's largely to do with week 1, where it was obviously the second highest scoring team and still lost to Viv. If we look at the coach score, we then have Pat's at the top, so Pat is maximising his team at the moment. With only 7 points left on the bench through 2 weeks. The Dream Team in second there with 11. Bucking the trend, obviously one of the lowest scorers. Only 11 points on the bench, so there is not much to be had for Mike's team at the moment. It seems like similar for Tom, who's only left 15 points on the bench. Then you get towards the middle ground, who's sort of averaging a bit between 10 and 15 a week. Then we get to the bottom. Great Scott's at the bottom of this. 41 left on the bench through 2 weeks. Most of that was week 1 with Xavier Worthy, Jameson Williams, and Jaden Reed, to be fair. I am then second, again, largely driven by week 1. Half of that week 1 was J.K. Dobbins, which is real. The other half is Jordan Mason, which isn't really real because I obviously just speculatively added him. But it still counts in the frozen scores at the end of the week, so that's the rub. But I'll happily take those bench points for having Jordan Mason, to be quite honest. And then if you look at the true rankings, again, not too insightful at the moment because there's only a couple of weeks, but pretty much the top 4 there as you'd expect it, and the bottom 4 mostly as you'd expect it as well. That's it for that section then. So we will now go on to the previews, Chris. So on the docket this week, we have Gridiron Gang against Kitchen Aid, which is Ollie Gardner-Meadows' new team name. Fudge Flies against Tom's Tyrants, which is a Founder Bowl. The Dream Team, you're going to love it, Chris. I don't know what he's got planned, but he's clearly got something up his sleeve. The Dream Team against Pat Stan, Ixan against Bucking the Trend, Great Scott against DJ S'mores, and Bare Necessities against Ocon Bears. You will notice this week we are going into divisional matchups, so this is the first week of divisional matchups as well. We obviously have a couple of 2-0 teams and 0-2 teams, but yeah, which way are you going to go for the marquee matchup this week?
So usually after we've seen quite a lot of high scores on a Thursday night, I would go for something that's 0-0. But I'm going to go with something a bit different. I'm going to go with the Dream Team versus Pat Stan. There's not much in it, but I think it could be a really good match.
Okay, here we go. Marquee matchup then for week 3. The Dream Team against Pat Stan. League leading Padistan at 2-0 take on the 1-1 current champions Dream Team here in week 3's marquee matchup. Padistan projected to win this one 90-81, giving Viv his second consecutive loss of the season as the projections have it. Viv has got 9.3 points on the board courtesy of Garrett Wilson so far. Let's take a look at the lineups. Derek Carr comes in for Pakistan. Tua Tagovailoa is obviously on IR now, so that's that. Brian Thomas comes into the lineup. Other than that, no further changes. I believe that drops Jaden Waddle to the bench, so he is going with 30 personnel this week, 3 running backs and 2 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for the Dream Team, let's see here, I think AJ Brown, oh no, he would not have played last week, so I believe Viv is probably unchanged, so he's rolling out, thank you for confirming, Chris, the 11 personnel, 1 running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Coach Nathwani is 9-3 against Pakistan.
Yeah.
Is Pat going to stay undefeated here, Chris?
Yes, and well, yeah, we'll see. That's the reason why I picked this one. Is this actually, I think, a lot closer than we may expect. However, let's go through it. So, Pat's quite rightly done some very interesting coaching tweaks. Bringing Derek Carr in, which is the right move, by the way. Bearing in mind that offense seems to be humming in what could be an absolute one for the ages against Philly at home.
This would be the absolute quintessential moment Derek Carr craps the bed, though. That would be like just stereotypical Derek Carr for the ages. I'm not saying he will. I'm just saying it would be stereotypical Derek Carr.
Stereotypical, true, but I mean, you know, they obviously, as everybody does, beat down the Panthers. They then beat down Dallas, which is absolutely fantastic. In Dallas, even better. Didn't finish Jerry off though, and now they can go and beat down Philly at home. I'm here for it. This is going to be good. And then we go to the skill positions, right? So here we go. CD against Baltimore. They haven't got a great deal else. I think I'm feeling pretty good about that. You know, so they're finally going to get him rolling. Brian Thomas looks very exciting.
It's a very tough defensive matchup, though. Buffalo.
And away. So, yes, I'm down on that one. But it is Monday night. Weird stuff happens. Weird stuff happens on Monday nights. And then the trifecta of these 3 running backs. Now, this is what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Connor against Detroit, love it. Cook against Jacksonville, love it. Achan, who's going to see a lot, and I mean a lot of volume, away to Seattle, like it. That is where this game's won and lost for me, is with those 3 guys. And then McPherson and the Chiefs D against Atlanta, which is, it is what it is. But say there's not really, again, not a lot to write home about there. And I think that Cincy are going to be absolutely beating down the Commanders. And there's not a great deal of scoring to be had, kicker-wise, because it's all going to be TDs. On the other side, Lamar against Dallas. We just saw Dallas get struck by Derek Carr. Are they going to come out and want to be seeking vengeance? Yes. Are they going to get it against Lamar? No. He's going to keep on rolling. Kyle Pitts is not. Devontae is going to ball out this week. Absolutely going to have a day against the Panthers. But and then Harris in what's going to be a very attritional, terrible match against the Chargers. Tank down against Minnesota, I'm not feeling overly keen about, but I do like Fairbairn, and I love the Raiders D against Carolina, even though they're playing Andy Dalton, but I don't care. Andy Dalton's not scary, and he's 36, and he's reason why he's a backup. So, for me, Pat's going to keep on rolling here. I think that the combination of his 3 running backs, which I love, Lamb, who should be alright, and Derek Carr, who's on a roll, will beat out Lamar and some other guys on the other side. Garrett Wilson scored his 9 points, which is handy enough. Devontae's going to score big. Darius D's going to score big. Everybody else is a little bit underwhelming this week.
I sort of agree. In fact, I'm going to go so far as to lock Pat in the marquee matchup here. Lock Pat to stand up. I'm assuming Derek Carr's going to have a good day. Those 3 running backs are going to be absolutely fine. Like you said, not too hot on Thomas, but Lamb should be fine. And then, if he sticks with the Chiefs defense, I think that's not really too bad, actually. And McPherson's fine. Whereas you kind of hit it the other side of the board. I'm just not too hot on Viv's lineup this week. I think roster-wise overall, he's still fine. But, outside of Jackson, I look at those skill positions. Adams, like you say, should do well. But if he's not involved in the scoring early, there's a risk that, if they can get that run game going, they just salt the game away and he doesn't do too much. Tank Dell, like you said, he's been quite quiet so far. That could change here. It might not, because Minnesota's been a really tough matchup so far. Harris has been meh, which is what Harris is. And I mentioned it on the LOC Fantasy Show, I feel like the Raiders D is a little bit of a trap D this week with Andy Dalton coming in, because they have absolutely been bleeding points to defense as Carolina, but weird things happen when you have that quarterback change and things. It's just unpredictability that I don't like when you're trying to plan against other teams.
You tend to get worse.
Well, not always. Not always. I mean, in the case of if your starter gets injured and the backups come in, that's typically how it goes. But this is a case of terrible quarterback replaced by, in theory, less terrible quarterback. So
Someone's been around the block a few times and done it.
Yeah,
I get that.
yeah. He's going to be less inclined to make mistakes, or try. You know what I'm saying. So I'm not saying that they're still probably going to score reasonably well. The upside is just not going to be what it was if Bryce Young was playing. That's all I'm saying.
No, quite.
Yeah. Cool. We'll go on to our next game then, which is Ixan against Bucking the Trend. The 0-2 Ixan team led by Coach Sherwood looking for their first win against Bucking the Trend, who got theirs last week at 1-1. Bucking the Trend currently have a 23-point lead and are currently projected to win 105-77.
Wow.
I think the projections will become clear why that is in a second, but we'll run it down. For Bucking the Trend, 23 points from the Jets, so a very nice start for them against the Patriots on Thursday night. In terms of lineup changes, I don't believe Mike has changed this week, so he's rolling out the 20 personnel, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for Ixan, Baker Mayfield comes in for Dak Prescott. Alec Pierce and Carson Steele come in favour of George Pickens, and he may have even dropped his other player there. I'm not sure. Maybe Samir White. Not sure, but he's good. Yeah, thank you. He's going with the 20 personnel this week as well. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Ixan is, or Mike is. Where are you both? I'm being blind. There it is. Ixan is 6-2 all time against Mike's team. Yeah, I think the low projection may be coming from Carson Steele on Ben's side of the board. Probably Alec Pierce is a fairly low projection as well, just for reference, Chris. I don't think Ben's team is fairly that low projected. However, the big start by the Jets D is obviously a massive boost to Mike.
Huge to say. Having a quarterback score before you even start the games is absolutely what you're looking for. And to be honest with you, the further down the list you go, the better it gets for Mike. Let's be frank. So Mahomes against Atlanta, big thumbs up from me. Absolutely great. If there's a game where Cooper's going to get going, it's against the Giants because they're not very good. Diggs is a weird one. Yeah, Diggs is a weird one. So we saw his absolute usage the reason why he scored 15 points in week 1 is because he scored 2 TDs. He scored the same amount of yards last week and went for nearly 4.
Yep.
So you're gonna have to, it's touchdown or bust for him. I don't think on the bench there's really anywhere you can go on that one too. So yeah, it's a shame. But yeah, Jacobs, Bijan and JSN for me again. These are the 3 guys that have got to get going to give Mike a chance here. We've seen Jacobs, especially with Malik Willis under centre, get a lot of usage. And I think that's going to be exactly the same again this week.
Mm-hmm.
We're still waiting really for Bijan to blow up. I mean, say there's some useful totals in there. Say he scored 11 and 12 over the first couple of weeks against KC at home. Yeah, I'd like to think that this is the kind of game which would he's got to step up to the mark. And then JSN, who against New England, who've been pretty stingy up in the first, certainly in week 1, was certainly not in week 2.
Mm-hmm.
117 yards. So against Miami in what could be a much more open game, I'm feeling a bit more, feeling a bit happier about that. But yeah, to say it's going to score over 100 points, that's a stretch. But that's not to say it won't happen.
I could see him getting to 100. I think with Mahomes having to probably pass the ball more here, assuming let's say you got 25 from Mahomes, for example. He's already halfway there then with 2 of the 7 players. I think 7 players, certainly between Cooper, who like you said should have a better day, Jacobs, Bijan, and then wherever he gets from JSN and Diggs. I could see 100 points on the offing.
Yeah, I could see it. I could see it if all goes well. But do I trust Cooper and Diggs? In my heart of hearts,
I think Cooper's had a rough sled so far in terms of matchups. He's faced a couple of good cornerbacks.
I don't know. We'll see.
This is what Amari Cooper is. He's very feast or famine. He will get you 1 point or he will get you 20. There is nothing in between with Amari Cooper.
The most frustrating of all players. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What's on the other side? I think Ben's gone with what he needs to do. He's gone with the stack. But Mayfield and Godwin are the stack that I would want in this. I wouldn't want Evans in this one because he gets tanned. Baker's done quite well over the first couple of weeks, and I think Godwin again is showing much more signs of life than he did last year. That's for sure. But yeah, I like DK in against Miami. Really like that. I think they're going to fashion to see a lot of offense, especially at home. Barkley against New Orleans and what could be a bit of a runoff between him and Kamara, which I'm wanting to see, is what's required. And the 49ers D down the bottom, who could absolutely kill Matt Stafford. I mean, he could be this could get very, very unfunny very quickly in that game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, for fantasy purposes, you're gonna laugh all the way to the bank. But yeah, it's gonna be just a mess.
Yeah.
But this is the thing with Pierce and Steele is that they could do everything or nothing.
Yeah.
And we've seen Pierce over the first couple of weeks put up some actually pretty decent totals against 2 pretty mid teams in Houston and Green Bay, and in close games as well. Against Chicago at home with Anthony Richardson, who knows what this guy's capable of? But it's certainly, if there's one receiver who's looking to do something this year, especially as a deep threat, it's him. So I get it as a bit of a dart throw, and Steele is the right move at the right time, even though nobody knows what the backfield composition is going to look like. So for me, if this was just hadn't been played already and the Jets hadn't scored a QB score, I'd probably have gone with Ben. Having said that, I think that Mike's got that advantage. This could be a very close game, but I think that again Ben's going to be on the end of a bit of a drubbing for no real fault of his own, and yeah. Yeah, but I don't. What I will caveat that and say is that as much as I don't like Pearson Steele, I don't like Cooper and Diggs on the other side, and that's the reason why. And Mahomes is a better QB than Mayfield.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I agree. This one's a sort of a tough one to pick. I agree. I'm picking bucking the trend, but it feels closer than it should be with 23 points to the board from your defense. But like you kind of said, the Niners you could offset that. For me, it is about Alec Pierce and Carson Steele that's sort of the tiebreaker because I'm actually sort of really high on everything else pretty much for Ben's team this week. Yeah. It's just those two. If those two hit, yeah, he should win this game absolutely. But I'm not convinced. I'm less worried about Cooper than you are. Diggs, I suppose, yeah, it's not a great match, but he's not been quite. It is a revenge game though, which just popped into my head. And he could also look to bring Swift in. I know Swift has been pretty awful so far, but against the Colts run D, which has been awful also, so he's got that option too. So that just keeps me on bucking the trend side. But yeah, equally, wouldn't surprise me to see Ben potentially come back and win this one either. But I think we're agreed that Ben's probably still going to be the highest conceded team come the end of this week. Regardless, we'll go on to our next game now. Great Scott takes on DJ S'mores here in week 3. Great Scott, one of the 2-2-0 teams remaining. 14.3 points on the board, only 83-78 point projected victories so far. Taking a look at the lineups for Great Scott, I believe Javonte Williams and Jameson Williams have come into the lineup in favour of Cooper Kupp and obviously Isaiah Pacheco, who are now on IR, so he is going with the 20 personnel this week, 2 running backs, 2 receivers. He obviously has the 14.3 from Breece Hall as well. On Ross's side of the board, I believe he is unchanged at the moment, and he actually has 0.3. I'd say courtesy of Ramondre Stevenson, but that's really not the right word. But yeah, 23 yards and a fumble. Not really what you want from him. He's been pretty good so far, so that'll be disappointing for Ross. History of this matchup all time. Let's see here. Great Scott is 1-0 against Ross's team, so they've only played each other once so far. Yeah, I think. Well, yeah. What do you make of this game, Chris? What do you make?
Right. This is probably the byproduct of Ross's very laissez-faire approach to the coaching scenario here, because if it was me, Stevenson and Singletary would have been out, and McBride and Charbonnet would have been in.
Yeah,
like that.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So this is actually a really easy one for me to call because, again, Singletary against Cleveland is not going to go anywhere.
He can still take Singletary out. I'd imagine he will by the time.
He should. He should replace him with Charbonnet right now.
Yeah.
And if he does that, then it's going to help. But when you start carrying players,
yeah.
Especially when someone's got a 15-point advantage, that's not ideal. Look, Burrow's gonna have a good day. I think JJ will have a reasonable day, especially at home, especially in a bit of a punchy match against the Texans. So, will Ayuk need to do a great deal against the Rams? Probably not. Will ETN do a great deal against Buffalo? Probably not. You know, will Steelers and Chargers might end up just cancelling each other out and just like have a defensive slug match. But this is something I do not like this week for Ross. Whilst for Jeff, you know, yes, he's got Evans playing Denver again. I'm not too hot on that, but there's a lot of upside everywhere else. Murray had coming off an unbelievable week last week. Now home against Detroit in what could be again punchy matchup. He's gonna be running around quite a lot though because he's gonna get a lot of attention from that defense. But yeah, Worthy coming in. Jameson Williams is still there. Javonte is probably the one potential useful thing that Denver have got. Breece Hall going for 15 already, and you know I see the Eagles D down there who haven't been unbelievable playing in New Orleans. I'm not so keen on that either. So this could be a real low-scoring one, but at the same time, I don't think it's going to be enough that somebody's going to score nothing to alleviate that. It's all about QBs, really. If who's going to outscore the other one, you'd think that Burrow would have a really good day here, but I can't see it's going to be enough for Ross to win. With the current lineup, if Charbonnet comes in, possibly a different story. But let's go with Jeff because I think there's some real upside.
Yeah, sure. I am going to go with Ross's team on the proviso of that exact thing, that he will put in Charbonnet over Singletary, because I think, yes, although he's down the 14 points effectively, I kind of look at Jeff's team this week. Murray is the one pillar, should we call it that?
Yep.
And then everyone else, I would not be surprised if they all scored quite low. Literally everyone else. Guys like Worthy and Jameson Williams could obviously pop off, but they might not. And then, yeah, I don't really like Javonte because this Broncos offense is terrible, as we know. Evans should get taken away by Satan. Ross's side, I actually kind of like the upside of the players that are there because Burrow should shred Washington. Jefferson should have a good game because he's Justin Jefferson. Ayuk is literally the only healthy receiver basically for the Niners at this point with Debo and Kittle gone. So, and the Rams aren't going to be able to stop him. Like you say, they could be run heavy, but I think he's going to be involved to some degree. Obviously, Charbonnet is going to be fine if he comes in. Etienne's going to be okay, not great. And then Justin Herbert's a high ankle sprain for the Chargers, so I like the Steelers' D is already good, but that just adds to their appeal. So I could actually see Ross turning over Jeff here in surprising fashion. So yeah, that's me for this one. We'll go on to our next game then. Bare Necessities takes on Oakland Bears here. Bare Necessities still searching for their first win, and Freddie got the first win of his career last week, and he's projected to double his tally with an 87 to 76 point win here. Looking at the lineups, let's start with Oakland Bears. Chris Olave and Rashid Shaheed come into the lineup in favour of Alexander Mattison and I think Jalen Warren, so he's going with 10 personnel this week, 1 running back, 4 receivers, spread offense. Bare Necessities on the other hand, let's take a look at their lineup. I believe they're unchanged at the moment, and their low projection is likely coming from Joe Mixon, who probably will not play with an ankle injury. So at the moment though, he is going with 31 personnel, very heavy set, 3 running backs, a tight end and a wide receiver. There is no history to speak of in this one, so I will just let you take it away, Chris.
So Freddie's team is the absolute flair team here. This is upside central, I would say. You look at Richardson, Harrison, Jonathan Taylor, the double stack of Olave and Shaheed, going with the rich vein of form that the Saints are in, and the Bills D playing Jacksonville plus Justin Tucker as well in there. I mean, there's not a lot not to like here. Devontae Smith also still there and still going to be producing as we think AJ Brown's going to be a little bit banged up. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for me, I think that's very punchy, very aggressive, and very progressive team. Whilst on the other side, unfortunately, I can't say the same thing. Because, yes, Josh Allen against the Jags on Monday night could go really well. I have dislike for Pittman.
Yep. Because
he's not Anthony Richardson's kind of guy.
No.
He was only good last year with Gardner Minshew. So Laporta's not started well. Henry against Dallas could get stifled pretty quickly, and also just keep seeding runs to Lamar.
Yeah.
Mixon's not fit, so he's not playing, and the bench sucks.
It'll be Cam Akers, I'd imagine, or Brian Robinson.
Brian Robinson is the man. Aside from Brian Robinson, of course, and Montgomery needs a score to be half decent. Browns D are going to go well against the Giants, or maybe they won't because it's the Browns. So this is an easy one for me to break down here. The players on the other side for Freddie just very much better at this stage of the season.
Yeah.
The team is in such a better state. unfortunately for bare necessities.
Yep, I'm also picking Oakland Bears in this one. Like you said, it's fairly cut and dry. I haven't been doing injury stuff, so I'm just going to speed through and do that for all the games quickly. So, yeah, Pittman questionable, but should play. Mixon doubtful with the ankle, probably won't play. Keenan Allen has been ruled out already. George Kittle doubtful with the hamstring injury, which fled up on Thursday. Tajay Spears, I think he's got an ankle injury too, questionable. I think he probably will play. Yeah, we'll just ping back and do the others. So for Great Scott, yeah, Cooper Kupp is obviously ruled out. No other injuries in that game. Extending its bucking the trend. Josh Palmer's questionable, but again, he should play. The Dream Team against Pakistan. AJ Brown already ruled out. Other than that, all up to date. We'll go on to our next game then, which is a Gridiron Gang against KitchenAid. Gridiron Gang coming off their first loss, KitchenAid coming off their first win. 2-1-1 teams facing off, and Gridiron Gang is projected to get back on the winning side of the column with a 92-85 point victory. Looking at the lineups, DJ Moore comes in for Deebo Samuel, who is injured and will miss this game with a calf strain. Other than that, Gridiron Gang are unchanged. They're going with the 20 personnel this week. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. On the other side of the board for KitchenAid. Let's see here. I believe Terry McLaurin has gone to the bench, and maybe Chuba Hubbard as well. I think he has brought in Tony Pollard and Malik Neighbors, so he is going with the 20 personnel as well. 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time. Ole Gunnar Meadows is 2-7 all time against Gridiron Gang. Chris, take it away.
Look, this one here, I think for Ollie, does prove to be a little bit more challenging this week, I think. So Pollard's going to have a difficult run against Green Bay.
Mm-hmm.
Neighbours going to have certainly a more difficult time against Cleveland.
Yep.
And yeah, you look at that, London and Rice. On paper, both receivers are absolutely fantastic. But you have to understand, especially with London, is that is he going to be, the Atlanta version of Justin Jefferson in that offense with Kirk, or is just going to be the Drake London that we've seen over the last couple of years, who's flattered to deceive?
Looks like that one more so far, and he's going to get the Trent McDuffie treatment in this one too. For whatever
there's going to be
worth.
some treatment. So yeah, I don't feel as though those guys would probably work out. I think that Jerome Ford's got a good matchup. I think that Hurts in the grand scale of things has quite a good matchup, and the Bears D, you can pretty much guarantee that Antonio's going to throw at least one pick in the match. But yeah, for me, there's not enough quality there to be able to beat what is a very strong Gridiron Gang team, and I think CJ Stroud, Nico, that's a very, very, very good stack. Bearing in mind the form that both of them are in, I think that you look at Tyreek, for all the QB problems that they've got, it's still a system that they want to use. They will find a way of using him. He's still very very threatening, even though they may not have Tua. But it's those 2 running backs there, Mason and Dobbins, who are going to get a lot of work this week, I think, as well as the Bucs D versus Denver, which is a lol fest too. So yeah, it's a very, very big uphill task for Ollie. I don't think that he's going to win this match. I think you will win comfortably, Nath. I would like to lock you in this one.
There we go. Thank you very much, sir. Hopefully that comes to fruition.
I hope so too.
Yeah, you are 0-1 on locks in the season, so yeah, very much hoping you'll pick up your first one here. I agree broadly with your overall assessment. I think Ollie could have a reasonable day, but I think the upside is probably capped to a degree. My side, the sky is the limit, and I look down and I think on the balance I'll probably have some guys that pan out and some that don't. It's just a case of ones that sort of overcome various things, because Stroud and Collins do probably have the toughest matchup they've had so far in the season, but they are Stroud and Collins. DJ Moore hasn't been amazing so far, but again, this is the easiest matchup the Bears have had so far, so if they're going to get the offense going in any game, it's going to be this one. Like you sort of said with Hill, it's obviously the first game without Tua, but historically, when Tua has missed games, Hill has still been reasonably good on balance. It's a bit more feast and famine, but like you say, they'll probably try and get him involved. Dobbins, he's been great so far, like you say, but again, this is the toughest matchup he's faced. I'm not necessarily in love with this one this week, but I don't really have a better option to turn to. Mason is obviously the one I'm absolutely hanging my hat on, and the Bucks D, as you say, should be an absolute lolfest against Denver. The Bucks D is quite banged up as they were against Detroit, but they're seemingly slightly even more banged up this week, so that's the one concern. But it is still Denver and they're at home, so yeah, I'm picking my team as well on that. But I could see an Ollie win, but I agree it's more likely I think that my team would win this one. Cool. Last game of the weekend. Here we go. We've saved your team for the last two, Chris. Founderball, Forge Flyers take on Tom's Tyrants, 2 1-0 teams, both coming off a loss. You're projected to get on the win wagon again, though, Chris, with an 88-79 point victory. Taking a look down the lineups here, so for your team, still rolling with Jared Goff. And I think the rest of your lineup is unchanged, Chris, so you are going with the 21 personnel, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. For Tom's Tyrants, I believe he is also unchanged currently, so he is going with the 21 personnel also, 2 running backs, a tight end, and 2 wide receivers. The history of this matchup all time, Forge Flyers are, wow, it's a perfect 9-9 in the series, so
Whoa.
Winner takes the lead in the series.
Huge. So the only change that I've made this week is bringing the Packers D in for the Cowboys, because I think that the Packers versus Tennessee could be very interesting. Because, as we've seen over the last couple of weeks, Will Levis loves throwing a pick six.
He does.
Just loves it.
Yep, he does.
So yeah, I'm feeling good about that. Right, so let's do this properly. First of all, with Tom, Jaden Daniels has the wheels, but not the arm. And that's the key problem here. He's also playing Cincinnati, and Cincy have got something to prove because they've started slowly and are looking to this to get right, and they will. And we'll get to that later. Amon Ra, for all that he may be good in what could be a very punchy game, look who's on the other side. Oh wait, it's Jared Goff. So whatever points he gets, unless they're rushing touchdowns, which would be weird, then yeah. It's all going to be offset on the other side. Shakir, dart throw. Kelsey,
who knows?
Get back in your box and watch your misses.
All right, JD Vance. Jeez.
I'll be on KitchenAid soon. Which does sound like a Christian charity, doesn't it? Anyways. Kelsey, yeah. Look, he is fancy disappointment of the year so far. For all that we can say, he is absolutely fancy disappointment of the year so far. This could get him right. I've said it on the other show. I think that you get to a point where you're a celebrity rather than a player, and this is where he's at.
Yeah, I think you're right.
He should go do his podcast with his brother. And go and be Taylor Swift's Taylor Swift's boyfriend, because that's what he's most famous for these days, rather than catching touchdowns. Say no more. And then Aaron Jones and Kyren Williams. Well, I think Aaron Jones is going to be used a fair bit. Kyren Williams, unfortunately, the Rams are going to get bad. They're going to be behind, and he's very touchdown dependent. And the Seahawks, well, they can have a good day, especially against Skylar Thompson. I think that at home is a much easier prospect for them. Yeah, that's a good defensive matchup. But for me, let's go and see what I'm excited about. Are we excited about Jared Goff this week? Well, I was excited last week. I'm more excited this week because I think that they're going to have to get right. Getting right's what Jamar Chase is going to do this week against Washington. He's going to shred them to bits. And then we have Flowers, who's been used well in the last couple of weeks. Do I think against that Dallas defense, who are going to be out for blood, that's going to do nearly as well as the 15 points he scored last week? No. But is he the number one receiver in quite a potent offense right now? Worth it. Kamara against Philly, coming off a 40-point week. He's not going to. His usage isn't going to fall. Neither is in that offensive. But we get to everybody, and this is, I say everybody, my favourite player on my team this year, Brock Bowers, who is a I mean, phenomenally physical specimen. He is.
Yeah.
He is just. There's a reason why I took him in the draft.
Same for the Raiders.
He's also playing Carolina, and Carolina suck, and he hasn't scored a TD yet, and he's going to. And it's about time.
Yeah.
Dude's gonna have a day. So yeah, I'm going for me, and you just got to hope that for Tom that he can score slightly better than the 75 points or 79 points. Sorry, I'm being disingenuous. 79 points that he's currently projected. I think that team probably can, but there's just too many guys who are just got question marks written all over them.
It's an amazingly low. I think it's the lowest projection we've seen certainly on the slate this week, where the team is entirely healthy.
Yeah,
I can't. I'm sort of scratching my head as to why the projection is so low. I can't figure out where it's coming from, but it's just sort of I suppose where Tom's team is to a degree. It wouldn't surprise me if he has an okay week, but yeah, I agree with your assessment. Like, if all going well with your team, you really should beat Tom's Torrance in this one, unfortunately. And for that reason, I'm picking your team here as well. Jamar Chase could go bananas here. He's only got 9 points so far this season. Wouldn't surprise me if he tripled that or more in this game alone. So
I'm here for it.
Yeah,
I'm going for 3 straight 100-point weeks here, Nate. That's my aim. Doesn't matter if I win or lose. 3 straight 100-point weeks.
Yeah, that's what you like to see. And that is the end of the previews. Injury-wise, nothing too... I mean, Jordan Love might play, but you're not going to play him, even if he does play, I would imagine here. Kenneth Walker won't play. Evan Ingram is going to be out as well with his hamstring. T. Higgins could return, but he's the Monday Night Football game, so it would be a bit of a gamble. Although he does have Shakir, so he could maybe swap him in over him if he wanted to do so. But yeah, that is it for another episode of the LOC Report. Thank you for joining us once again, Chris.
Thank you for... Well, yes, I'm glad to be back in what is... was very comfortable and fun environment. And I hope to see you on Sunday. Whoever's coming.
Yes, I was going to say, you are welcome to watch the game at mine on Sunday again, should you want to do so. So I look forward to seeing you there, Chris. It'll be the last time I can invite probably people for a while, because next week it's Becky's Nan's 80th birthday, and then I'm going to the NFL games each of the 3 weeks after that. So it will be a while. So if you do want to come watch, it'll be the last time you can. Or we can together with me anyway, so please do so. But other than that, I wish that you all have a very good weekend. Best of luck in your matchups, unless you're playing me, of course. Goodbye, everybody.